Yesterday, we were talking about Shreyas and Preyas, and I had mentioned a consequence of passionate activity is that after the enjoyment, there's suffering, which we all know and we all experience. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about this because as conditioned souls, we're all caught up in this situation of, I know I should do something, but there's a pulling to do something else. That pulling is habit. That pulling is conditioning, lifetimes. Many, many lifetimes of conditioning. Let's look at the nature of passion. And let's talk a little bit more about what we talked yesterday. The nature of passion is really the nature of temptation. Some carrot is put in front of us. Something is dangled in front of our nose. And we think, that will make me happy or that will give me pleasure. But Krishna has designed the world in such a way that pleasures and passion, pleasures which are sinful, pleasures which do not serve the purpose of serving him or even serving yourself in the sense of purification, purifying yourself. You get a pleasure, no doubt, sensual pleasure. But the pleasure doesn't last. The consequence, it's so interesting how something so pleasurable can turn so sour or so miserable, and sometimes very quickly. That's the nature of passion. And the other aspect of passion, which is so interesting and so important to remind ourselves of, is that Krishna says the nature of passion is that it's like a bubble on a carpet. You press it down in one place, it comes up in another place. In other words, no matter how many times you satisfy it, it will come up again. And as we know, sometimes it comes up stronger. The more you try to satisfy it, the stronger the desire becomes. So whenever this illusion comes to your mind that if I do this, it will make me happy or satisfy me, if it's something which is not Krishna conscious, it's always very valuable to think, I've done this already many times. I'm thinking to do it again. And it still hasn't worked, and I'm still hankering for it. And therefore, if I do it again, I'm still going to be hankering for it, maybe not immediately, maybe after an hour or tomorrow or the next day. It's not going to satisfy itself. And the only thing that's going to satisfy itself is Krishna consciousness. Just like we've just done a cartoon. It's kind of a funny cartoon. It's for my book that I'm writing. And the cartoon says, if I just had blank, 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 I would be happy. And it shows a boy, young man on a bicycle looking at someone on a motorcycle. But the person on the motorcycle is thinking, if I just had a car, I would be happy. And the person in the car is looking at a helicopter. And he's thinking, if I just had the helicopter, I would be happy. And then it goes to an airplane and a spaceship. And then the guy in the spaceship is saying, you know, I wish I had my bike back. I was happier then. So the point I was making, and I will make this point to you, if we look at our life and we think of the past, of what we wanted that we thought would make us happy, we would say, if I just had this, I would be happy. Everybody does it. Even we as devotees, as conditioned, we do that to some degree. But the point is, we have the things that we wanted a few years ago or 5 years ago when we were saying, if I just had this, I would be happy. We have them. And right now, we're probably saying, if I just had this or that, I would be happy. If I just had something, I would be happy. So we're doing the same thing. We're saying the same thing. We don't even realize it. We're just going around in circles. No, if I just had this, then I would be happy. But you have all the thises that you wanted in the past. So it's a very simple point, and we all understand it. This is ABCs of Krishna consciousness. But sometimes it's important to remind ourselves of the ABCs when there's some temptation or some attraction to do something which would not be the best thing for our Krishna consciousness. It's nice to think, I've already done this hundreds, maybe thousands of times. And if I do it one more, it's not going to be any different. I'm going to be left in the same situation, not satisfied. And that the only thing that can satisfy me is my advancement in Krishna consciousness. That's the only thing. There's nothing else. We're trying to get that through our head. Such a simple point. We've heard a million times. And you might be thinking, why are you even talking about this? We all know this. Well, if we all knew this, I wouldn't have to be talking about it. We all know it, yeah, in here. But do we know it in here? Not necessarily. So remembrance of the consequence of the action. Especially what's interesting is many of the things that we're tempted to do, we have done in the past, and after we have done them, we asked ourselves, why did you do that? This doesn't even make you happy. And then we've made kind of an internal agreement and never do this again, and then we do it again. So we are very caught up. And Prabhupada has said, without Krishna consciousness, you must be caught up. So to the degree that our Krishna consciousness is weak, we get caught up. And in those times of weakness, really the only real hope we have, aside from the process of devotional service, which probably means we're not doing it that well because we're caught up, is our intelligence, who can remind us, yes, you've done this before, it didn't work, it's not going to work now. It's always ultimately made you unhappy after the sense gratification is over. So why don't you learn from this? And you have what you want, and you still want more. And where does that end? It ends at the lotus feet of Krishna. So these are some strategies, you could say. And if you read Prabhupada's books, he's using the same strategies. He's appealing to our intelligence to be renounced, to be controlled. And if we can't be controlled because of a higher taste, then the control has to come through intelligence. And so sometimes our spiritual life is a little weak and the taste isn't there and the spiritual strength isn't there. So we're going to get it from knowledge and from reflection on past experience so we don't give in to the conditioned temptations. Hare Krishna.